Yo. Welcome back to Gridiron podcast. I'm your host, JB. As always, joining me, Devontae Forever. What's good, man?
What's going on, Jay? How you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yo, as always, y'all appreciate the love and support, man. Yo, here we are, Devontae. We just wrapped up week 8, going into week 9, which means we're officially halfway through the season. Um, Before we even get into some of the stuff that happened, some upsets, some teams got beat down and all that. Let's get your thoughts on week 8, man.
Hopes and prayers up to Kirk Cousins, definitely
Right.
for that. Hopefully he gets he heals and he comes back because he definitely was playing his best time of football. So I got to give it credit and got to respect it. Then more importantly, definitely up and down week. There's a lot of teams that took losses that kind of surprised me for sure. But like that shows you what this league is, that like anybody can win on any given day. There really wasn't no like big dog to me this week.
Yeah, man. Definitely prayers up to Kirk. Torn Achilles, right? Ruptured or
Yep.
whatever. Yeah. Um, Brutal, man. Brutal. I absolutely feel for him. Yeah, that's a tough one. Like you said, like I know it's a contract year for him. He was playing his best ball. What we've seen him play in a long time, if not ever. Definitely big prayers out to him. Also, happy Halloween, y'all. Of course, happy Halloween. If you're taking the kids out, be safe. This is a short show due to Halloween. That's why the late start time and everything. But let's get right into it, y'all. Let's get right into it. So Devontae, we kicking this off, man. So my quick thoughts on week 8 is um so I feel like a lot of these teams are all on the same level, right? Some teams are 3-4, 3-5 now. Some teams are 5-3, whatever. I feel like some
Mm-hmm.
teams are good, and some teams suffer losses that aren't so good. But we'll get into
Mm-hmm.
it. Let's start this off, man. Let's kick this off. First game we're gonna talk about is the Raiders, man. And the Lions beat the Raiders. That's not really a shock. Me and you both are high on the Lions, so that's not, again, that part right there is not a shock. But Devontae Adams, one catch on 6 targets. He did have a drop, so one of them is on him, but the rest of them, we saw Garoppolo miss some deep, probably for walk-in touchdowns 3 times, which they said would have put him at about at least 5 catches, 176 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Instead, he had one catch. What's your takeaways from the game? And obviously, the trade deadline is passed, so he's not going anywhere. We know that. But what's your thoughts on the Lions? Let's focus on the Lions because we know the Raiders. That whole situation is messy.
The Lions are definitely a tough team to play. They're very physical and they run the ball. And like they're once they get healthy and get David Montgomery back so they can use their 2-man backfield with power and speed, they're going to be a very big tough force to reckon with. And but the Lions can also be had at the same time because they are a very young team on in the skill positions and on defense. They're also incredibly young. But right now they're just playing with that swagger, and I think Dan Campbell is a phenomenal coach, and I think he is the right. I think he's like the right person to lead that group of guys.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to Coach Campbell. He really is a good coach, man. I know some people they say, oh, he's okay. No, he's good, man. He's good. And one of the biggest parts of coaches is being able to motivate the players. And he sure hell
Mm-hmm.
is, at least so far. The Raiders side of it, obviously I'm a fan of the Raiders. My biggest thing with the Raiders is, look, Josh McDaniels, I've said this ad nauseum now. I'm not even gonna harp on it because it's a short show. But he gotta go. He got to go. Hunter Renfrow has 20 targets all year now, and he actually had his most in this last game. Devontae Adams can't get the ball to him. You let go of Carr. Carr and Adams had the most touchdowns in the league last year for a receiver. Derek
Mm-hmm.
Carr just hit a bomb to Shaheed for the Saints. You kind of see what's going on with the Raiders. You know what I mean? And because they can't throw deep, Jacobs can't run. As for the Lions, obviously they got shellacked by Baltimore last week. You know what I mean? So, which is shocking. Not that they lost to Baltimore; they are a good team, but how they lost to Baltimore is probably the biggest thing. But yeah, good bounce back win. Very curious to see how they play the Chargers next week. That's the big game for them. To keep the ball rolling. The Lions right now, they're very much live for the number 1 seed. You know what I mean? That's a big thing now that we're halfway through the year. As for the Raiders, they got the Giants. That's kind of the crap bowl. I know the Giants and Jets just had a crap bowl. But Crap Bowl 2 next week, the Raiders and the Giants. But yeah, man. So Devontae, let's jump into this next game. Let's jump into your game, man. Jaguars defeated the Steelers 20-10. Trevor Lawrence 20-24 completions, 292, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Trubisky 15 for 27 with 38, 1 TD, 2 INTs. Minka did get hurt in this game. He will not play Thursday against the Titans. Obviously, you are the resident Steelers fan here. What's your overall thoughts on the game?
The first week was really blown by these. The refs were calling penalty after penalty after penalty after penalty. Like they were really like blowing the game for us in the first half. Like especially where like we are normally more of a fourth quarter team. We actually started to play a lot better in the second half of that second quarter, and then boom, it all went downhill when Kenny got hurt. Like when Kenny Pickett got hurt, I knew he was gonna lose that game. Like I knew like Mitch is just not that kind of guy. He's very much in like your Garoppolo category where like he's not built to win you the game. He's more built to control the game when you already have the lead. So that's why like I just knew we weren't gonna win that game. And now we're really banked up in the secondary, playing a tough Tennessee Titans team, which which is gonna be a rough week for us, but we're looking at we may get Cam Hayward back this week, which will be heaven on earth. So we'll see. Right now we're really banged up, and Mike Tomlin's gonna have to give one of his little speeches before this game, coming off a short week.
Right. And so yeah, my takeaways in the game. Look, man, nothing against the Steelers. I kind of picked them to lose this game just because I think that's how high I think of the Jaguars. I know they got off to that slow start, but they've won 5. They won 5 in a row now. Still not happy about Lawrence throwing picks. He has cleaned it up a little better from last year. But yeah, man. Until what we just saw Sunday with the Titans, I picked the Steelers to beat the Titans Thursday night. But Will Levis now looks a little better. Minka's not playing. I know Pickett is playing. So I'm now more curious about that game because of how Will Levis came in and played. Through was it 4 touchdowns? I think he threw.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I am curious in terms of how that plays out. But yeah, man, like the Steelers are like, we know what the situation is with the offense, and that's with Pickett gone. It's bad enough when Pickett is there because obviously Matt Canada and the play calling, but with Pickett gone, there's almost no chance. You know what I mean? So obviously they need a play calling change too, along with the Raiders. Like you know what I mean? But yeah, the Jaguars, they got a big game right after the bye. Right after they bye, I believe they play San Francisco, who also will be coming off of a bye. Both team needs that. We're about to get into San Francisco right now. Actually, not yet. First, we're gonna talk about the Broncos. My Broncos that I picked to go to the playoffs. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs 24-9 in what probably the biggest upset of the season so far. Patrick Mahomes, quote unquote, had the flu, but obviously he did play, so he was out there. You know what I mean? And he's played sick before and had great games. But Mahomes with two interceptions, no touchdowns. Wilson had 3 touchdowns despite only having 12 completions, 114 yards. What's your takeaway from the game? And is this a big deal for the Chiefs or not so much?
This ain't a big deal for the Chiefs at all. They're just like teams like that, stuff like that. You can tell they're just kind of just trying to hold it together till the bye. You can always kind of see when it's like that when these teams are like really going like heavy and then they need that break. They need that break. And then they get that 1 week of rest, kind of like gets them rejuvenated and back focused. I think it'll be the same thing with the Chiefs while they're working like McCole Hardman back into their offense and stuff like that. But I want to give credit to the Broncos defense because normally they've been getting cooked all year.
Yeah.
For how terrible they've been, and they actually came in locked up and played ball. There was a lot of people on the field who you probably really don't know.
Absolutely.
Who were in there just who were making tackles and making plays on Kansas City. I thought Russ played okay, but Russ did enough. He scrambled a lot more, which we haven't seen since Seattle Russ. So I definitely think the Broncos. It's kudos to the Broncos. Good for you to get this W. It doesn't matter anything in the division. No, only thing I think changed the landscape of the Denver Broncos was they probably held back on a lot of trades they were going to make because of this. Right.
So for me, man, I'm ready to say the Chiefs are having their Super Bowl hangover. It's something about it just doesn't look right. I know Eric B is gone. Obviously, that is a key thing. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not. I know some folks are saying it's really not that big of a deal. So far, Devontae looks like a big deal. You know what I mean? It looks like a big deal. I'm not even going to lie, man. But yeah, they've been struggling, man. The Chiefs offense has not looked the same. Pat Mahomes is throwing more picks than we're used to him seeing. And some people, I know some people I saw on it, they're saying, well, more people are just catching them now. Well, you don't drop picks for 5 years and then just start catching them. You know what I mean? Something's going on with the Chiefs. Kelsey, I know he went to the Rangers game. There was a controversy with that when they had an away game. But look, man, they lost the game. Kansas City does not look sharp. Hardman's back on the team now, had a costly fumble. Patrick Mahomes with the picks. The Broncos are playing better. They are playing better. I think this is their second or third win in a row now. Kansas City, their schedule is not easy on the way out. You know what I mean? They got a Miami team who's itching to beat them. So we'll see how that goes in Germany nonetheless. So they play Sunday at 9:30, which I do think Miami will win that game. And then Kansas City gets his bye. So I think, like you said, it kind of comes at the right time. They're trying to tread water until that bye. And then I do think we'll see a different Chiefs team after that. As for Denver, you know what I mean? It's kind of the same for Denver. Like, I think, again, I picked them to go to playoffs. I do think they're going to win around 7-8 games, but now obviously with the way it's shook out, I don't think it's going to be enough. So I changed that. I don't think they're going to playoffs, but I do think they're still going to win around 7-8 games. So yeah, and the last game from this week I want to talk about, Devontae, is San Francisco lost again. They lost a third straight game, this time to the Bengals, 31-17. And I'll start this one off, man. We talked about Purdy and the Niners, and the one thing I said for the beginning of the year, I want to see how he looks when he plays from down instead of being up all the time. Because when as you know, obviously, Devontae, when you're up, you can run the rock all you want, right? But when you're down, it forces you to throw the ball. And I know the Niners' offensive line is good, so I'm not worried about him getting sacked. You know what I mean? What I'm worried about is him actually having to throw the ball. You know what I mean? And look, man, third straight loss. I know the Cleveland game was windy and rainy, and he had a chance. He drove them down. They missed a kick. But he threw some picks in that game. Then he threw picks against the Vikings. Then he threw picks again against the Bengals. So from the Niners side, I'm a little concerned that defense is not the same as it was under DeMeco Ryans. That secondary is not the same as it was. And Purdy is obviously struggling, and Kyle Shanahan still is losing games when he doesn't have that fourth quarter lead. What's your thoughts on the Niners side of it?
The Niners definitely got some problems, especially with getting more of a rush besides Nick Bosa.
Yep.
And Hargrave up the middle, which is why they just went and got Chase Young randomly. Like, they just randomly popped up and just
big trade today.
Big trade and snatched Chase Young. So that obviously is going to be a nightmare for a lot of these offensive tackles coming up in the next coming weeks. And also, I will say they are actually missing their true playmaker in Deebo Samuel on the offense. I think people slipped on how much of a big loss that is because of McCaffrey and Ayuk, but Deebo Samuel is a real big staple, a part of that offense. And you can tell a lot of their play calls really depend on Deebo Samuel because he's the only one who can motion in and out, and you actually follow the motion. You don't really follow a motion for George Kittle. You don't really follow a motion like that for Ayuk. But when Deebo motions and goes all the way back into the round of the backfield, you got to go cover that.
Right. That's a good point.
He's like the true liaison on that offense, and I think that's really your issue. You're really starting to see a big drop off in offensive production.
That is a very good point about Samuel not being there, and I'm not trying to undermine it when I say it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. My only concern in it is that the Niners always have injuries. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the playoffs, somebody probably ain't gonna make it if you go by history. Whether it's McCaffrey, Ayuk, Jennings, or Deebo, you know what I mean? Or Kittle, somebody ain't gonna make it there. And just again, the mix of Kyle Shanahan and his quarterbacks not being able to come back in games when they're down in the fourth quarter. Like, at this point now, I think anybody who plays the Niners should just take the ball first. I know in the NFL, everybody defers. Just take the ball first. Take the ball first. and see if you get the lead and keep the lead, because so far they have shown that they cannot basically come back in the game. So, and they got a bye now. They get the regroup. I think Debo will be back after the bye, but now they got Jacksonville who can score points and their defense takes the ball away. So the Bengals side, though, obviously I picked the Bengals to go and win the Super Bowl. I do feel better about them. Still got a ways to go. They play Buffalo Sunday night, which is the big game. How do you feel about the Bengals now as they now pull ahead with a winning record now?
Well, it's not surprising. Like, I mean, I think if you really thought Joe Burrow was going to play that bad all year, I thought you were
all year long, right?
I think you're incredibly delusional. This is not a surprise to me. Like, I thought the Niners would win the game, but I'm not surprised that the Bengals won the game. But the Bengals do have some real concerns that I'm very surprised about. That like we all know Joe Burrow has ice in his veins. We all know he can throw the ball very well. His leg is back healthy, so he can scramble. But I'm very concerned about their running game. Their running game is not as strong as it used to be at all.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's going on, whether if it's an offensive line problem or if it's a Joe Mixon problem. But they're having real struggles running the ball. But other than that, yeah, no, we all expected the Bengals to be in the playoff race. I think you're very, very delusional if you thought those first, like I said, if you bought into the bait of the first 5 weeks, you're very delusional to think that the Bengals are going to play that bad all year.
Absolutely. Let's get to this comment. Glenn Foreman, Pop said Denver has some tools, but of course, since he won, we needed the game and showed up. Still has things to clean up. Niners D was suspect. We moved the ball kind of regularly. Debo's a problem, but he don't play D. We're Niners cocky and have come back to earth. Purdy is showing how young he is when pressured. So yeah, I agree with that. So my take from the Bengals side is, look, we know the quarterback's a monster, the receivers are monsters, and Mixon has been playing his ass off. That's probably the biggest takeaways from the offensive side. The defense has been hanging in. They've been catching picks when thrown to them. You know what I mean? Logan Wilson had a beautiful pick. He dropped one in the first quarter and then picked them off again in the fourth quarter. So, look, the way the Bengals are playing right now, they're dangerous. I think Buffalo should be alerted, you know what I mean, as they're coming to town, because they haven't beat Cincinnati in a while. So I'm very curious on how, if they could win that game, now the Bengals are live, you know what I mean? And Baltimore and Pittsburgh and everybody else in that division have to be on alert if they're not already. But yeah, I definitely like the way Cincy played. I'm not sold on the Niners until I see them start to come back in games. And if they get down to the Cardinals, I'm not counting that. You know what I mean? I'm not counting that. If they come back on the Cardinals, I'm not counting that. I want to see how they come back against the Seahawks. I know they play them twice in the next five weeks. The Seahawks, the Rams, the Saints, or the Bills or whatever. I want to see them. Can they come back? Can Purdy come back against those teams? That's what I want to see. But yeah, so the one more thing I want to do, Devontae, real quick. Obviously, we are halfway through the season now. I just want to check in on our picks, and then we'll get out of here, man. Again, hope everyone's having a happy and safe Halloween. Please be safe out there. So, Devontae, I got the screen up right now. These are our picks. So as we're doing like a quick check-in. So far, we're not going to go through every single one. I just want to touch upon some key ones. All right. You got the Bills. I got the Dolphins. Obviously, I think the records are the same right now. Obviously, the Bills will hold that tiebreaker right now. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The Dolphins have a 1-game lead. Do you still feel confident about that pick?
Yeah, it's so early. It can come down to the wire.
Okay, so we'll jump over to the AFC North. I think both of us still think the Chiefs are good regardless. So yep. I got the Bengals and you got the Ravens. So far, these are looking like the two best teams, even though the Bengals got off to that slow start. Do you still feel good about Baltimore?
Yep, very much. I'm very terrified of Baltimore. Very terrified.
So right now, I'm more inclined to agree with you right now about Baltimore. I think they're clicking. I do think the Bengals will beat them next time. My only worry about Cincinnati is not for these division games. Besides Cleveland, we know they struggle with them. I want to know, can they take care of that game against Houston? You know what I mean? Teams like that they should beat to be able to keep pace with Baltimore. So we both got the Jaguars. I think we both still feel good about that. The NFC East, big showdown this week, Cowboys and Eagles. We'll talk about that next week on the backside of that and what that means for the NFC East. The next thing I want to jump into is right now the wild cards. So obviously we talked about this before, right? We talked about how basically the Jets are iffy because of the injury. We both had the Giants, which obviously that was the biggest. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the Seahawks.
Never.
How you feeling about the Seahawks right now at 5-2?
I think it's gonna be tough for them during the stretch because they're gonna be like a lot of that win some lose some type of team. But I think they can still get it. I think they'll have a chance to get in, especially with Minnesota probably plummeting and Detroit winning that division pretty clear. I think they have a chance to beat out like Green Bay and a bunch of all those other weird teams to do enough to get into the wild card.
Yes, so I still got the Saints winning the South, so that eliminates them from a wild card spot. I don't think Tampa or Carolina or Falcons will get one. So obviously we know one will probably go to the NFC East. And then that leaves, like you said, I think the Seahawks get in pretty easy, to be honest. I actually think they're gonna I'm still right now, obviously they're leading the division. I still think the Niners will win that, but I'm not so sure no more as I was about that because the Seahawks might have the two best corners in the game right now as a tandem. I'm talking.
They have dogs.
Yeah, they have dogs all over the place, and I like the way they're playing. It's quiet right now at 5-2, but they're playing really good. And yeah, obviously the Super Bowl picks and stuff like that are still the picks. Obviously, those teams are still live, but yeah, man. So we just wanted to have a quick show, man. Definitely appreciate y'all checking in. Devontae going to take a trip. He's gonna take a trip when he gets back from the trip next week. We'll be able to get right into it. Talk about Dallas and Philly real quick, Devontae. I just want to get a few of the picks. All right, ready? So obviously you got your game, Titans Steelers. You rocking with the Steelers? You going with the Titans Thursday night?
The bias always wins. I'm going with the Steelers. I'm going with the game.
Bet. I'm going with Steelers only because of the rookie Will Levis. Obviously, when you're playing a Mike Tomlin defense, he's going to make you struggle. So next game I want to talk about Miami and KC in Germany.
Oh God, ew. I'm gonna say 9:30 in the morning. Ew. I'm gonna go Miami for now. I'm
going Miami. I think they're on the tear, and I think right now everybody's getting up to play the Chiefs. I think they're going to beat the Chiefs. I think Chiefs will come out of the bye ready to go, but I think they're going to struggle. They're going to limp into the bye. Next game I want to talk about that I think is a good game right now is Seattle and Baltimore. Obviously, both teams right now flying high, same record. I'm actually going Baltimore. I'm going Seattle in the upset. I know Baltimore is favored. Baltimore, I didn't like the way they looked against the Cardinals. You know what I mean? They kind of skated by, if we're being real. I think Seattle's real. I think those corners are going to be able to lock up. You can't do nothing with Flowers, but I think the corners are going to lock up everybody else. I'm actually going to Seattle in the upset on that one.
I got Baltimore because like they haven't even began to start actually showing the run schemes yet. Like they're like this is them being dangerous throwing the ball, and that's a scary sight for anybody to see right now because they literally have not ran the ball. They've rarely used Lamar as a running back. I like Lamar running the ball, and that's terrifying to know that like he'll be fresh in week 9.
Absolutely. Philly and Dallas. I assume you're going with Philly.
I'm not picking Dallas in no big time game ever in life. I'm picking Philly.
So 425. I'm gonna go Dallas. I think the next time they play is Sunday night, and I think Philly will beat them. I had them splitting, so basically I could pick which one. I think both are gonna win one of those games. And then last but not least, man, we got the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Buffalo Bills Sunday night.
I got the Bengals. I just think the Bengals are just way too fit to beat the Bills.
Yeah. So I'm going with the Bengals too. I think the Bengals built their team to beat the Chiefs. You know what I mean? But by doing that, they actually built the perfect team to beat the Bills. Believe it or not. You know what I mean? So I'm going with that. But yo, appreciate y'all. Happy Halloween. We'll definitely be back next week on Tuesday at the regular time of 7:05. Appreciate the love and support. Devontae, safe travels on your trip, of course. And we'll catch you next week, man.
Catch you next week.
Let them know where they can find you real quick.
Oh, they can find me at Devontae Forever and everything. Jay, thank you again.
No doubt. We out. Peace. Happy Halloween, y'all.